Tonight on the Fanatic Forum, it's a podcast crossover. We've got the Fanatic Forum meets the Elizabethtown Podcast with the host and creator, Zach Alexander. But first, right after this. And happy Friday and welcome to the Fanatic Forum. I'm your Fanatic and host, George Buehler, and we got a good one for you tonight. Of course, I've got some cool comics to share with you guys. Plus, it's a podcast crossover here. It's a little bit of a local flair here because I live in the Elizabethtown area, and there's a podcast about Elizabethtown. So we're going to be meeting the host and creator, Zach Alexander, talking about his show and what he's into, why he created the show, and, kind of what he geeks out about. So all that kind of good stuff, everything. So let's actually meet the man right now here. So welcome to the Fanatic Forum, Mr. Alexander. Hello, sir.
Hey, George. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing just fine. You were lagging just a little bit before I popped in here. I was worried I would be like on the news where they're like, how's it going out there? And the guy's just standing there like this for like 10 minutes. And you're like,
Zach?
Yeah.
Hello.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll only put your logo up here. So, of course, you are the creator and host of the Elizabethtown Podcast. So tell us a little bit about that real quick.
All right. Elizabethtown Podcast is, it's just that. It's a podcast about Elizabethtown, telling the story, really letting the city speak for itself through the stories of its people. And that's it. That's the bare bones. That's everything we strive to do every episode. And George Buehler will be on the podcast on Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that.
I know, that'd be cool. Yeah. So I really like the idea. You said it's telling the story about the town through its people, and you talk to business owners and artisans around town, journalists, and whoever else. So
exactly. And it was an interesting concept to get started. Well, it was kind of based off this idea, where I was seeing all these things kind of written about E-Town or people like talking about their experience living here. And every time my reaction wasn't a negative one, but the reaction was, that's not been my experience. Living in E-Town, I've been here my whole life, save for 1 year I spent in Oklahoma. And, but I love it here, but every person's experience is different. And that's the conclusion I came to. So then it was just kind of a random idea. I asked my wife when I was like, what if I get the podcast going back? I used to have a personal podcast that was just about whatever. Mm-hmm. And she was like, nah, if you really feel like you should. And I was like, I was also thinking about maybe doing one about E-Town. She's like, maybe do that one before you just bring back the one that had no point. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I really like the whole concept of it here. So, and we've already got a couple comments here to share here. So Dave Mattingly, friend of the show here, saying good evening to you, sir.
Oh, right. Hey, Dave.
Yeah, and yes, you are correct. I think there is a movie. Maybe is it based around your podcast, Zach? Does Orlando Bloom owe you a check?
See, I really think he does. Hear me out. So, my first job ever was at a shoe store. If you guys remember the plot to that movie, it was about a shoe designer, right? He has to go back to Elizabethtown. I don't know. I think Dave's onto something here.
You know what? Even before I lived in Elizabethtown, because we're right when I moved, I think the movie had already come out and had been out for like a few months by the time I moved here. So still the buzz of the release and the excitement of it was still very thick. Like there was, I think the movie theater still had a giant banner out front and everything. But what cracks me up being just a resident of, the Louisville area, the Kentucky area, his whole journey from the airport to Elizabethtown, where he gets to, where's that guy going?
Yeah, what is he head? He's either like north, and then all of a sudden he takes like the wrong exit.
Yeah,
I will say, save for a few inconsistencies, to my recollection, it was a pretty decent movie.
it was. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun movie. I'm kind of curious where they shot around locally. I need to kind of look at it again now that I've been here for a while.
You know what?
See if
That's
I
been
recognize-
one of my goals for the podcast. Obviously, you can't like air a movie and be like, "This is our content," but I would love to do like a, "Hey, everyone, start your movie right now," and then just talk over the movie, your commentary style.
Well, you can kind of do what's like a watch along, where basically,
Okay.
you're watching it and you're commenting on it, and then the viewing audience at home is expected to watch it anywhere they can, whether it's streaming or they pop the DVD in or whatever else. So yeah, you can do it like that. So, but yeah, I would be curious because it's like I know he's he leaves the airport, somehow he crosses the Sherman Minton Bridge, which is on 64,
Yeah.
and then he comes back over the 2nd Street Bridge, and then he gets somewhere else. Then finally he sees the sign for Elizabethtown and like gets all excited. I'm like, dude, all you had to do was go up 65, man. It's like 45 minutes, man. It's it.
Yep.
But they get some movie. They got to make it an adventure.
And honestly, I feel like the native to Elizabethtown people in that movie, they, that's fine. We live in Kentucky. We're okay with it. But every character that's from Kentucky in media that I've seen, like, movies specifically, they've always got that just little tinge of like clueless. They're just good old country folk, but some people are.
Yeah. I kind of got that too. And it's like, hey, you know what? Hey, we got cable TV here. We're sophisticated.
We wear shoes when we have.
That's right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, well, we'll definitely talk more about the podcast here, but always, of course, on the Fanatic Forum, I love sharing new comics because I buy new books every week. So I definitely want to share some of my favorites and see if maybe anything interests you, because of course you're not a regular comic reader. You have your favorite superheroes and whatnot, but yeah, you're not so much a regular month-to-month reader. So
not at all. How much commentary am I supposed to give to this segment? Should I just let you do your thing?
Well, I'll do my thing, and if anything pops up that you think is really cool, you're more than welcome to comment on it, whatnot. But yeah, you don't have to completely shy away from. But
very good.
Of course, this one I showed you, of course, before we started talking, because this is a special one here. But the shop I work at, Collaborating Comics, we got these in this week. So if you're a big Moon Knight fan, this is a variant of issue 13. An exclusive from Trinity Comics. This was their San Diego Comic-Con variant. Online, this is going for quite, this is a few $100 right now. We are not selling them that much, where they're much more reasonably priced, but we only have a few left. So if you're a big Moon Knight fan, get thyself to Collaborating Comics in E-Town, because we got some. I couldn't pass that up myself, so I definitely had to get a copy. But it's I'm not much on variants, but that one's really pretty. So there you go.
Yeah.
But here's some new stuff this week here. So I've got a couple selections from Marvel. They have started a new Alien series here because they, of course, have a property in that. So this is kind of kicking off from the last series. They do kind of catch you up a little bit here with, if you need to know any information, didn't read it. But this is basically a new arc they're starting here. But yeah, this is, of course, taking place much further, kind of maybe about another 50 some odd years in the future from the second Aliens movie. And basically our government, kind of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation with the government, has decided that they're going to try to make, study the aliens and see what kind of, medicines and whatever else they can make. But also they want to use them as bioweapons. And it's already starting not to go well. So this is not quite necessarily for mature readers, but it does have a parental advisory warning on it. So not for children, but yeah, if you're definitely in the whole the Alien franchise, I've enjoyed what Marvel's been doing with it. So of course they've got the Predator franchise too. Now that just started up. We haven't seen issue 2 just yet, but looking very forward to that. For the superhero crowd here, this is a fun book. So this is the first issue of All Out Avengers. This is a lot of fun. If you are not reading the regular Avengers title, or if you're kind of bogged down with a lot of the mythology and whatever else, you just kind of want a simple, like just the Avengers kicking some bad guy butt without a whole bunch of other plot and other stuff going on here, this is where you need to start out right here, folks. This is a fun book here. Derek Landy and Greg Land are the creative team on here. Greg Land does amazing art. Basically, he does the cover, and the rest of the book looks a lot like this. So it's a very pretty book, but this is kind of the same vein as like the nonstop Spider-Man series, where it was very focused on action and being just kind of a very exciting, propulsive kind of story, as opposed to, doing a lot of stop, a lot of exposition or whatnot. So yeah, definitely for the superhero action fans, that's the way to go. Let's see here. Oh, this was a fun one here. This is issue 6 of the current Punisher series. Punisher is taking on Ares, the god of war. Of course, if you're familiar with the current run of the Punisher, he has basically chosen to be a general for the Hand, as in the evil ninjas we know from Daredevil, and if you watch the series or even read the comics. Yeah. So the Punisher is teamed up with the evil ninjas, and things have not been going well. It's a very tense. It started out well, then it went tense real quick. And so, yeah, so he's got a current problem right here with just basically just fighting the god of war, kind of almost like this is father fighting with son here, because, he's the god of war, and Frank is kind of his favorite son because he kills a lot of people and enjoys war because Frank has problems.
Did he team up with the Hand thinking that something good would come out of it, or was he out for destruction?
He's certainly definitely out with his whole mission of destroying crime, and he basically kind of teamed up with them for 2 reasons. One, they promised to only kill criminals and basically help out with that sort of thing.
Classic.
But of course, this is not spoiling anything for free issues in. They made him an offer he couldn't refuse, because the Hand is real fond of resurrecting people. Mm-hmm. And Maria Castle is with the living once again.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not going well, because she's kind of starting to have memories of how she died and kind of wondering, where's the children? And the Hand has not been successful at resurrecting the kids, though they've certainly tried. This is a very if Jason Aaron's the creative on this one here. This is an interesting run on Punisher here, but it's been very, very good reading so far. But what sets up for the next issue is that, one other superhero that's always been kind of a foil for the Punisher, they argue a lot. They have a little bit of opposing viewpoints. That would be Daredevil, and Daredevil's always in opposition with the Hand. He's kind of wondering, Frank, what the hell are you up to, buddy? Yeah. So next issue is the explanation and possibly a fight, because that's going to happen here. So
I'm into that one. I like that. It's kind of psychological.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Dave says he definitely wants one of those Moon Knight variants. Yeah. You got to come out to Clobbering, buddy. Make the trip to E-Town. It's not a far jaunt there, because Dave lives in, I think, the Louisville area. I am Marie Castle says, honey, I'm home. Let's see here. Oh, one last one here. This has, of course, been, I've really enjoyed this new series, but the new issue of Ghost Rider, and Wolverine is guest starring this one. He was a little bit in the last issue, but the problem with this series is that Johnny Blaze, who's currently the Ghost Rider, seems like there's some other organism inside of him that maybe is causing some miscommunication between he and the writer. So sometimes when the writer takes over, Johnny blacks out. He seems to forget what happens, and it's causing some problems. And he figures out that, yes, there's some sort of like demonic organism in him. And so Wolverine's going to try to pull this thing out as only Wolverine can. So it's an exorcism the old-fashioned way. And I'm not talking the Roman Catholic version. Let's see here. Only one indie to share this week here, but for fans, like I said, I've been sharing this book since it started. For fans of like high concept science fiction and fantasy, look no further than Starhenge. This is by Liam Sharp, who does the art and the writing for this one. This is a just unique and gorgeous book. But the whole concept of this one is that this kind of takes place in multiple time periods. Starts off in the far future where this alien organism, society, whatever else, has decided to invade us. They're far more technologically advanced than we are. Their only weakness seems to be magic. The only problem is, in our modern society, there really isn't any. It's magic is kind of gone, and so basically, a couple of, I guess you could call them astronauts, explorers, something along those lines, decide that they're going to go into the past to try to basically kind of stir up the magical juices and get them stronger so that we will have them in the modern day. What this does is basically start giving us parallels to the Arthurian legend, Merlin, Stonehenge, all sorts of stuff like that. So really, really cool stuff. Very heady. So this is for the AP science class here. So so if you want something that's a little more mature, not so much in explicit content, but as in like grown up, if you're a big Arthur C. Clarke fan, or this sort of stuff like that. This is some really cool stuff here. So I don't normally like a lot of big heady books like that, but you know what, that's an exception. It's really cool. Two more I got to share with you guys, and we'll be done with this. The next issue of the Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths has come out here. This is DC's big event of the summer. And this is not disappointed. It's the first issue started off a little slow. Then once we got to issue 2, this has been bing, bang, zoom here. So, of course, normally for traditional DC readers, we know that Crisis basically means big team up of all the superheroes versus one big bad sort of thing. The problem with this particular crossover is that the traditional Justice League are dead.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so you've basically got all these big bads from a lot of the previous events. We've got like Pariah from the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. We've got Necron, Darkseid. I mean, all these big bads from any DC big event here have now teamed up that seem to be working for some great darkness, as they keep referring to it. What we have left now are basically like the next generation heroes, the Teen Titans, the stuff, basically the younger guys. We got a few veterans like, Nightwing is still around, the Hal Jordan Green Lantern is still around, Barry Allen, the Flash is still around, but we're still dealing with a lot of younger characters here, so they're being put to the test big time in this. But maybe this issue starts to provide a little hope for our heroes here. Maybe a little light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, here. So yeah, but very exciting stuff here.
Yeah, I like that one.
One last one here. This is fun, especially for the art fans here. This is Dear Detective, a Batman one-shot here. This is a single issue, and this is in the prestige format here, so it's a little larger. It's kind of like magazine size. But what this is Lee Bermejo, who's probably one of my favorite Batman artists currently working right now, has done a ton of variant covers for the Batman book and for Detective Comics over the last year and a half or something like that. What he's done is collected all those variant covers into one art book here, but he has added an element of a bit of a story in here. So you every now and then you get a page of text here, kind of like basically kind of like the Zodiac, like a taunting letter to Batman, come find me sort of thing like that. And so all the art is kind of put into a collective story to kind of give you a little bit of cohesion in there. And then it's kind of fun because the end of it, the person writing the letters identifies who they are, but it's coded, and they kind of give you a code throughout the different letters. So if you want to put your detective skills to work there, you can figure out who the person is that sends Batman these letters here. But even if you don't want to do some sleuthing there, if you just enjoy some wonderful Batman art, that's the way to go there. $7.99, folks, and it saves you from buying a lot of Batman comics that you may or may not want, but if you just want the Batman art, there you go.
Yeah, I think part of the appeal of Batman is just looking at Batman. He just looks cool,
Yeah, and like I said, there's just some absolutely, like, here, check out this one here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's right outside of Arkham here. He's on his bike and everything like that. And here's here's Joker and Penguin and Harley starting a riot here in Arkham.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, just the intricate. I mean, like definitely not on this show. There's no one on this show going like, it's just comics. But like, the comic book art is like it could go as deep as they want to take it. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean, the art of the 60s and the 70s was very traditional. It was the panel art sort of thing like that. But then kind of like the late 70s going into the 80s, things started changing. Artists started getting a little braver. We started breaking those panels and getting the splash pages. And, sometimes even, we've got characters kind of breaking the fourth wall in their own comics. She-Hulk and Deadpool are great examples of characters who kind of, go beyond the page, so to speak. So She-Hulk has ripped out her own pages of her comics because she doesn't like what's going on, and so then, there you go. She's fond of doing that in her own books. So, let's see here. Dave's got more comments here. Let's see here, saying that Logan's the best of what he does, and what he does is disembowel your inner demons. Yes, that's I tell you what. So, Punisher. Moon Knight has your imaginary god. He's good. Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I can't remember what issue that was, but yeah, Punisher and Moon Knight had a bit of a trade off there, and yeah, they weren't nice to each other. There's a lot of there's a lot of backbiting in superhero fandom, I think, or just in their own. But yes, Star Henge does sound great. Yeah, Dave, I'm actually surprised you're not reading it there. So
I really liked Star Henge. I thought that one seemed very cool. I don't know how dense it is as far as story goes, but I feel like I might need like the watered down version. Like, just tell me the quick points of that one, but I'd be worth the dive into there.
Well, you know what? Just mosey on down to your favorite comic book store, because there's a few in here in Elizabethtown, so you got your pick. But yeah, mosey on down there and say, I want my Star Henge. So there you go.
I'm in.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, pause for our sponsor, Comic Books for Kids, and then we'll be right back, and we're going to be talking about podcasts here, buddy.
Ooh.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit cb4k.org.
And we're back. Yeah, a great charity, the Comic Books for Kids. Like I said, they get into children's hospitals and cancer centers, and give the kids a little something to smile about. So, very worthy sort of thing. So, all right. So we are finally now going to be talking in depth here about the Elizabethtown Podcast. What makes you tick, and what are your geek favorites? Kind of what do you enjoy being on here? So,
absolutely.
Let's start. We got to plug, of course, your Elizabethtown Podcast here. First off, where can we find this podcast?
It is an audio podcast, so I have chosen not to throw it up on YouTube, but it is pretty much anywhere you would typically listen to audio podcasts. Big ones: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, that sort of thing. But yeah. Anywhere you typically find it. And here's my guarantee. If you listen to podcasts somewhere and you can't find it there, just let me know. I mean, I'm right here. I'll put it on there.
Yeah, I usually listen to podcasts through Audible, and you're on Audible, so there you go. So
nice. I actually had no clue I was on Audible, but that's convenient.
I'm on Audible too. Hey, we're all on.
Find
there.
us book. Hey, let's do it.
Yeah, I think, and Google has their own Google Podcasts, so you can find
Google
stuff
Podcasts.
There too, so.
That's a big one. Yeah, Samsung Podcasts.
It's crazy how much is out there, and then just the availability. If you know how to download a podcast, just search for it. You'll find it. But yeah. But let's talk about it. So, of course, you said before you had kind of your own personal podcast that you just talk about anything, but you decided you want to kind of hone down and have a little more of a bit of a focused subject matter. So how'd you kind of come about doing that?
Sure. I'll kind of give you the story here. So I'm trying to think of the year. Doesn't matter. A few years ago, I found out about podcasts because it's one of those things. They're huge. I mean, right now, like I can't even fathom people not knowing about them, but plenty of people don't know about podcasts.
Yeah.
I had been listening to a lot of stand-up comedy on YouTube. I would just, in the car, before I left, I would search for a stand-up special or whatever clips were on there, and I would just set it to play. I'd drive around listening to stand-up. It was awesome. And that led me to a couple comedy podcasts. Bill Burr's podcast was a big favorite, still is. Bill Burr led me to Joe Rogan. Love Joe Rogan, hate Joe Rogan, whatever your thoughts are. It's an important podcast to the sphere. It's it's part of that landscape for sure.
It's interesting. I mean, just depending on who he has on there is some interesting topics. Sometimes some point of views that you may not agree with, certainly, or but it's at least they aren't boring. Let's put it that way.
Sure. And then that led me to Armchair Expert, which was a big favorite with Dax Shepard. And honestly, it's just kind of grown from there. I've got a few that I was late to the party on it, but I started listening to Lore. Lore is great for road trips, but kind of had the thought, I could do that. I could get a microphone. I know how to edit audio, more or less. And so my thought was to do what I had coined as Moment of Zach. And so Moment of Zach is my handle everywhere. If you're looking for me at Moment of Zach. I had a website for a while. It just really didn't serve a purpose beyond that. So I have a theme song. We have the Moment of Zach theme song as well. So that's kind of fun.
That's awesome.
If you're looking for nerdy things, I have a theme song written and performed by me. I don't know what's more narcissistic than to have your own theme song performed by yourself, but
Weird Al had his own children's show, and he did the theme song. So I mean, you're in good company as far as I'm concerned.
So the started Moment of Zach right after I got married. So that's a great thing to do is when you're freshly married, spend a lot of time away from your spouse, doing something that isn't that rewarding financially. So she was very supportive. Let me say that my wife was just my biggest cheerleader on that sense, and was happy to let me attempt whatever I wanted to attempt. But the problem with Moment of Zach is it really didn't have any purpose. There was not a pre-existing niche. It was just people I knew, and it was a lot of creators. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It still exists. If you're looking for the old episodes, they're on all those same podcast platforms we just talked about. And then I was in a band at the time called Ocean City. Ocean City's music you can find everywhere you stream music. It was a lot of fun. We ran for about 5 years, and I was very proud of that. It was the best. My best musical product creation, whatever you want to call it, up to that point, and I'm still proud of it, and I still love hearing it. So anyway,
that's awesome. We talked about it a little bit yesterday when I recorded. Yeah, I remember I remember the name definitely. So
yeah, it was.
So yeah, so you guys.
It was one of the. That was my specialty, I guess, in my early 20s was coming up with things that didn't really have an exact concept behind them. They were just kind of cool. Ocean City had. We really didn't have a great story behind the name, and we got asked all the time why Ocean City, and so that was just kind of a fun
conversation starter, right?
Yeah. Hello, Cat.
Yeah, this is Pepper.
Pepper, hello.
Yeah, all my cats have geek names, so this is Pepper Potts, as in Tony Stark's firstly assistant, and then CEO of Stark Industries, and then we've got. Iris West Allen, as in the wife of Barry Allen. And then Carol Ann, named after the creepy little girl in the Poltergeist movies.
I've had a number of cats in my life. Growing up, our cat's name was Honey. She had that name when we adopted her. Next cat after that, I named him Pavo, Spanish for turkey. And then we had a cat that was a barn cat that kind of stuck around outside. This has nothing to do with anything, but I always enjoyed this. As kittens, they're not quite as easy to tell apart, male, female. So we named her Sylvester Stallone. Not Sylvester, not Stallone, but the whole thing, right? And then we found out, Sylvester Stallone is a woman. So that's what we called her, though. All right, so back to the podcast real quick. So Ocean City ran its course. That was an awesome time. But at the time when it was still ongoing, that's when I was doing Moment of Zach. And so I said, all this extra time that I'm spending on the podcast, I should be spending that time improving the band. And so that was we kind of brought Moment of Zach to a close. Shout out to Greg Milby. He's been on all of my podcasts, I think, thus far. But we always joke that he was the one that brought it crashing down because he was my last episode. I think his episode was out for like 2 days before I canceled the whole podcast. Then, give it a couple years, really. Yeah. Like a couple years. And I just started getting that itch again. I was like, I got to get back behind the microphone, do some podcasting. Ironically, I started another band called The OK. The OK is still active right now. We have an EP out and a cool cover of Ghostbusters, if I do say so myself, on all the streaming platforms. And, I was like, I feel like I can balance my life a little better now. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's not. And so brought back Moment of Zach, did one episode, and that's just kind of ongoing. If I find someone cool that's not from E-Town, not associated with E-Town, I'm going to try to convince them to come on Moment of Zach. But
there you go.
Elizabethtown, again, was that concept. I was just kind of like coming up with random ideas. Mm-hmm. Asked my wife what she thought of the Elizabethtown themed podcast. She was like, I think you really have something there. We have had podcasts about E-Town before, but currently I don't know. I'd love to be corrected because I'd love to meet those people. I don't know that we have any specifically Elizabethtown themed podcasts other than Elizabethtown. So, and ultimately, here's my hope. I saw what happened to Bardstown, right? No harm, no foul, no shame. I'm not judging anybody. That was a tremendously amazing podcast, Bardstown, but it was a true crime podcast. And so I was worried that if I didn't start this podcast, or if somebody didn't start this podcast, then the next Elizabethtown podcast would be true crime, about how crime is on the rise.
Sure, yeah.
So, and that was it. I think it's important to say I don't know that, I have delusions of grandeur from time to time. My goal was not to place myself at this peak of being like, I am the voice of E-Town. Right. I don't know anything about E-Town. That's the fun part. I have no clue what I'm doing here. I just have a microphone and I love talking to people. So that's the goal. Just getting to know the community, letting the city speak for itself. That's our tagline.
Well, that's fun because, aside from, getting to know these people, they, whether they run a business or they're an artist or they, whatever job they happen to have, they live in the town, they have some sort of connection, some sort of history to it. So, they've seen, changes in, the town, or, maybe if they're old enough, they know some history about it, or, whatever the case may be. So everybody brings something different to the table. That's what I like about the show. So, it's not so much like you're learning the history of Elizabethtown. You're just learning what the place is all about. You're learning some stories. So, if you're kind of just looking for, just kind of a nice, light podcast, we're not talking about any, true crime or anything spooky or anything like that. You're just basically just listening like nice, normal stories. You get some good conversations going here. So, nice, easy podcast. So,
not to contradict you in any way, but there have been a couple spooky moments on the podcast, but that's not its theme. That's not the goal. But we did talk with the Elizabethtown Paranormal Society.
That's true.
And I got the heebie-jeebies a couple times. We were out. It was late in the evening. We're telling stories about, different things they've experienced. It was a good time, though.
Cool. I stand correct. That's right. We did talk about you had the the Paranormal Society. Yeah, I need to go back and listen to that one because that would they're interesting folks, and of course, maybe I enjoy the whole kind of paranormal sort of thing like that. I like going on ghost tours. I've never gone on a ghost hunt or I forget what they call those, where they basically kind of just sit in vigil and kind of wait for stuff to happen, in the wee hours of the morning, sort of thing like that. The investigation or something like that. But I've never been on one of those, but I've always kind of want to check one out. So it'll be fun. And I think actually we've got the Night Risers Con coming up here in E-Town next Saturday, and actually the Paranormal Society is going to be there. So
yes. I think we mentioned it on Elizabethtown, which again is coming out on Wednesday, your episode. There you go. But it was vetoed. My wife and I talked about it. We were like, nah, investigating the paranormal, not my thing, not something I'd be a good fit for. But I would love to just have a pizza with those guys. It's such a cool group.
Oh yeah. I'm sure they've got some stories of their own experiences and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
So, well, you've talked about music before. So, kind of what are your roles? Tell us about kind of the style that you like playing. The style you guys are comfortable with doing when you normally perform.
Yeah, absolutely. If I may, I'll take the shameless plug time right now. My
Sure,
band's
yeah.
called the OK. If you didn't catch that earlier, TheOKAY. You can follow us wherever you'd like it. We are the OK.
Nice.
That's the handle. And we actually have our own festival coming up in Brandenburg on October 1st. So it's called the OK Fest. You can follow the OK Fest at the OK Fest. Anyway, that's all out of the way. The OK is a new wave band in its essence. We are kind of like an 80s throwback kind of pop rock,
Nice.
alternative, whatever you want to call it. A lot of chorus on the guitars, a lot of big gated snares, that sort of thing. And that's really the vibe that we aim for. We usually hit the mark. So far, like we've said, we have a cover of Ghostbusters that came out a couple Octobers ago. You can check that out if you're like into we're getting kind of into the spooky season, George. But yeah, that's it. It's new wave.
You ask my wife, we're already here. I like to hang on the summer as much as I possibly can because I enjoy my warm weather. But yeah, she's already ready to start getting the pumpkins out for decoration. But yeah, that's cool. I've noticed kind of a trend. You don't see it so much you see a little bit in the 80s, in the States with kind of a lot of 80s influence and a lot more like that very kind of, bright synthesizer kind of sound in pop music. But there's kind of this, I got really big into like a lot of international rock bands about, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, something like that. And like Sweden has always been this hub of rock and roll nostalgia. So like throughout like the 90s and early 2000s, all the rock bands there sounded like these like rough and ready kind of 70s, Kiss meets Ted Nugent, kind of, just real high energy kind of rock and roll. And then as they got older, they start sounding like 80s kind of either like a little bit new wave bands or kind of that, grown up kind of AOR, 80s sound or whatever. So that's really kind of come back, especially international markets. So it's kind of cool. You guys are kind of on that, that wavelength of, kind of when
the wavelength, the new wavelength.
Really cool.
One of my favorite bands right now, although admittedly I have no clue if their content is appropriate. I'm assuming it is, but it's a band called Revolver Held. They're a German band. Sorry, didn't quite get the Revolver Held, just in case you were. Yeah. And they just released a great album. It's just full of that 80s nostalgia, which kind of cracks me up, honestly, that I've fallen into this the genre because I was born in 95. So I missed the 80s completely. I am a copy of a copy of a copy, but I think that's the beauty of it. Is anyone can appreciate it. That's the cool thing about the music specifically of the 80s to me is 40 years later, we're still thinking of those songs as like the best of all time. And so just to capture part of that essence is just a cool piece of what we do.
I mean, you're certainly not alone. I mean, of course, there's people that have 60s and 70s nostalgia music, whether or not they grew up in those eras. I am certainly guilty of that, but I'm across the board when it comes to nostalgia because I'm such a music geek and a deep diver. So I appreciate a lot of bands that may or may not have been widely known or whatever else throughout all these decades. So yeah, it's I appreciate when you've got like younger new bands that have an older sound to them. So I certainly have a lot of appreciation for that. I will definitely give you a recommendation if you want.
Absolutely.
A Swedish band by the name of Houston.
Houston, like Houston, Texas?
Just Houston, as in like Texas. Yeah. They are totally like the love child of Boston and Journey.
Oh man.
But that very 80s kind of poppy rock sound, and their singer is got some pipes. So occasionally
I will check them out today.
Yeah, there's what was it? Oh, there's one song. I think it was off their second album called "I'm Coming Home." I mean, this song would have been like #1 in the pop charts in 1986. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's definitely a kind of fun one. There's like I said, there's tons of like, great kind of newer throwback bands out there. I mean, these guys are like, they've been around for a few years. They have like 3 or 4 records right now, but I mean, they're still considered a newer band. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we get,
yeah, go ahead. I'm
sorry. It's like just a tiny bit of lag. I keep jumping on top of you. If I can throw another recommendation out, anyone who's into that 80s sort of throwback, even some 70s stuff thrown in, I'm sure he would be able to explain that better. But that's what I'm hearing. There is a band called The Night Game. It is Martin Johnson from the band Boys Like Girls. If you guys remember them from back in the 2000s, it's incredible. That it changed my life. He has 2 albums out under The Night Game, and honestly, I couldn't recommend more highly.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'm big on you kind of discovering. That's what I love about streaming. Streaming service like Apple or Spotify or whatever else. Like you can just kind of keep digging there and listen to all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, Night Game. I'll check that out. So yeah. That's what I love. I don't get to talk enough about music on the show, but most of the time we're talking about comic books or movies or whatnot. But yeah, huge music geeks. I appreciate getting to talk about this.
If you want some music geekdom, you'll have to get my brother on the podcast. I'll be the first to admit it. I love music, but I'm also, for a musician, I feel like I am a little bit narrow-minded because I'm such a creature of habit. So I'll find like 3 bands that I love and just listen to those 3 bands. And then it takes some convincing for me to branch out. But my brother, you could play him some B-side from some 80s metal band that never made it, and he'll be like, oh, yeah, that's such and such from their album that came out in 83. Like he is like a historian.
Yeah, your brother and I are going to have to talk. Yeah, that's he sounds like my people. I don't know how I just became that, but I love going to record stores anyway. I still to this day miss Ear Ecstasy in Louisville. I mean, there's still some fine record stores like Better Days is still around, Underground Sounds is still around. Those are longtime stores, but man, Ear Ecstasy was just kind of like just kind of special little vibe to it. So, and I'm old enough to remember it in 3 different locations before it finally closed down. So there you go. All right. So what they see, of course, going back to the podcast a little bit here, do you have anybody that's, in town that maybe you haven't approached yet that you want to interview, or maybe, I don't know, just, a certain resident that you want to really get a good story out of, or anybody like that?
I'll give you a couple good real answers, and then one that's a real answer, but that may surprise people. I would love to get the mayor on the podcast. In fact, I've been in contact with the mayor's office, and
nice.
It might happen. It might not, guys. I'm not putting pressure on the mayor. He's got stuff to do. And I would love to have Bob from I Like to Make Stuff. I don't know if people are familiar with that YouTube channel, but Bob is a local guy. I think his last, anyway, it doesn't matter. His name is Bob. That's what he goes by on the channel. I don't want to like out him if he doesn't want to, but anyway, I'd love to talk to him. It sounds like, he's got a lot of followers, so that's great. But the real reason I want to talk to him is it was either last year's anniversary trip or the one before that. We were just staying at this cool little chalet in Illinois, and for whatever reason, all these I Like to Make Stuff videos started popping up on Facebook, and I watched like 1,000 of those. And so I would just like to, like you kind of want to meet your heroes in a sense. Like I would love to just talk to this guy about him making stuff. But then here's the last one, right? My goal since I started this podcast, and this, I want to say this carefully because I don't want to promote or even assist. I don't want to be an accomplice in anything illegal. But any town, if you feel like maybe your town doesn't, you might just be a little naive. Any town has like a seedy underbelly, even if it's not a big one. And so I would love to talk to an Elizabethtown, like a drug, like someone who sells drugs or something, and just get to the bottom of like what's going on in that person's life. And I don't I don't know if that's even legal to talk to someone and protect their identity if they're committing a serious crime. And that's all I'll say about it. I don't have that. I haven't made that connection. I don't know where to find drug dealers or creators or whatever, but that'd be kind of,
yeah.
It would be intriguing. I don't know what the logistics of that would be, but it would be intriguing.
I'm wondering though, I wonder if maybe if maybe if you talk with somebody with the E-Town Police Department, maybe they would have I don't know, maybe there's Scared Straight program or something like that. And they have favorite people, who have previously committed crimes. You kind of learn about things that way, or I don't know. But I mean, of course, Vice, they constantly interview drug dealers and kingpins and shady people all over the place to get their stories, just for telling their stories. And, granted, they're kind of going into places that are endangering your lives. So I don't want you to do that. But, there's got to be a way to, that would definitely be an interesting episode.
I hadn't thought about that for whatever reason. But someone who's straightened themselves out, but who used to do it. That would be a good compromise instead of me trying to track down the drug kingpin.
Yeah, a safer way of doing that. Yeah. I don't want you roaming the streets late at night looking for trouble, Zach.
Just going around asking random strangers, "Hey, you know where I can find some drugs?" That would be. I would make no progress, George, because I work at a church. That's my day job, and when you meet me, you're like, "That's a guy who works at a church." Yeah. So they'd be like, "Get out of here! You're narking or something."
Yeah, I got some Tylenol for you, Junior. Go away. Yeah, we want to keep you safe out here, Zach. Because I know a lot of people. I don't even think I know any shady people. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I used to go. I used to live kind of toward the heart of town, and I'd go jogging at night. E-Town is, be cautious, people. Don't, be careful at all times anywhere you go. But E-Town's pretty safe. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing we're kind of blessed about. I mean, we're pretty close to Louisville and stuff like that. But it's a pretty quiet place, and granted, we do have our fair share of crime from time to time here, but not like any place else. But for the most part, though, it's feel relatively safe. So
yeah,
of course, it helps too. I'm within a couple of blocks of the police station too. So
yes, that my running route used to take me right by the police station, so that's always convenient.
Nice, yeah. The police station and the Dairy Queen. And notice how very close those are located.
Yeah, pretty close, guys.
That's not a coincidence. So, no, the cops in our town, they don't eat donuts. We eat biscuits. So. Or blizzards. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right, hold on. I got a cop story real quick, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
I love this story. I don't know if I've told it on my podcast, but I've been pulled over 1.5 times in my life. The first time, not that eventful. I thought being pulled over. He put his lights on, or she, I don't know who it was. I just saw the lights. So I pull over. It was right by Central Hardin High School. And I waited and waited and waited. And then eventually they turned their lights off, but they didn't move their car. Mm-hmm. But they also didn't get out of the car, or it wasn't just like I evaded police. That's not what happened. It was so long that I eventually just left and they didn't follow. So it was I don't guess they pulled me over at all. I was just some schmuck that was I guess I'm pulling over. They weren't after me, whatever happened. So
weird.
Inexplicable on that one. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe they thought they would pull me over and they're like, nah, let him go. He didn't do anything. Because I wasn't speeding or anything.
It's possible that you would think he would have, the officer would have come out and said, no, I'm sorry, you're good, or something,
Yeah. The second one was a legitimate, I was pulled over, put the lights on, which I was driving my wife's car at the time. It was a Nissan Sentra, I believe. And it had a transmission that was going out. So that's why I was driving it. She was driving my car, and we eventually traded in, all that fun stuff. But the rear view mirror was one of those that kind of darkened at night so that the headlights didn't blind you. And so when they pulled me over, I didn't really see blue. I just kind of saw headlights flashing, and I was like, what's going on? So it took me a minute to pull over. I'll try to abridge the story a little more. Long story short, the reason he pulled me over is that I had a license plate light out, and he He was very nice. Just wanted to let me know that was a thing. Also, I was driving in an area that had some suspicious activity reported, so they were just checking up on everyone that they felt they needed to, right?
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I'm glad that they're out there doing that. And he didn't cite me, and that was awesome. It was just, hey, get that light fixed. But the weird thing about this stop was that when I gave him my insurance, at the time, my wife, I believe, had just finished up her degree. And so we were in the process of getting her insurance that was on her parents' auto insurance switched over to like our insurance, you know? And so it was still her father's name on her insurance card. Well, this police officer knew her father that was working for a home building company at the time. And we had gotten like a sneak peek because he had just moved into a new home. Anyway, through this crazy sequence of events, I'm pulled over. It's the first time I've actually been pulled over. And the cop goes, "You were in my house." And I was just like, "I'm sorry? What do you?" So then he explained, hey, you know this, your wife's father is building my house, and you guys got to see it. I was like, "We did. That's you." And so he was just like, "Hey, get that light fixed, buddy." And I was like, "Okay." But anyway, probably a longer story than needed, but it amuses me every time I think about it.
That's funny though. You were, I was like,
no. Yeah. Could you imagine being pulled over and one of the first things the cop says to you when you give him your insurance is, "You were in my house."
And I need new pants, sir.
Yeah.
I've had a couple, pullovers, but the one that was my favorite though is I was living in an apartment complex and visiting a friend of mine who lived further down the complex, and I was also doing some laundry at the same time. So I was like, "Well, I'm going to throw my laundry in the washer, go visit my friend for a little bit, and then come back and switch it and do the thing." Well, we end up, I don't know, we got playing some games or doing whatever else, and time went away from us. And next thing I know, I was like, "Oh my God, my laundry is still sitting in the washer. It has been for a couple hours now.
Mm-hmm.
I better go see A, if it's still there, and B, switch to anything." So I'm moving through, and I must have like rolled through a stop sign or whatnot, because I've traveled like 2 blocks basically from one apartment to the next where my laundry facility is. So I must like roll through the stop. Cop pulls me over and says, "Oh, you rolled through the stop." And I explained this whole story to me. He's like, he just kind of says, like, gives me this like exhausted look. He's like, "Nah, never mind, you're good." He just gave up.
He's like, "Wait, laundry day? All right, go on."
Yeah, I was like, "Dude, it's like, I hope no one stole my laundry." He's like, "I don't think anyone would steal wet laundry. They want it dry." I was like, "You never know." So I posed a good argument. So
I do have one more. While we're on this subject, I feel like it wasn't a pullover. It was a my car was in the shop, and the shop was on Litchfield Road, right up the street from, again, Central Hardin High. I don't know what this. I wasn't in high school. I was an adult, and I was waiting for my mother was going to give me a ride to work after I dropped off my car at the shop, and so I'm walking. And coincidentally, my work bag at the time was a backpack. So I'm, we've met. George, you're a very tall man. I'm also a very tall man, 6'2".
Yep.
And so I'm the 6'2" adult male walking by the school with a backpack, and a cop pulls out of the school, swings up beside me. He didn't throw his lights on. He's like, "Hey, how old are you?" I was like 26 or whatever I was at the time. And he's like, "Okay, where are you going?" I'm like, I was going to McDonald's to grab a biscuit or something. And he was like, "Okay, we thought you were a student. You're fine." So.
Oh, love that. Yeah. I'm sure I was kind of, made a couple of cops last Halloween look twice at me, because I found a really good Michael Myers mask and a jumpsuit. And so I was Michael Myers, and my wife was one of the many victims, probably in the original movie. It's going to be our kind of a running theme, is that she'll just play a different victim each Halloween, and I get to be Michael Myers. Well, I'm, as we said, large fellow, I'm 6'4", and when I'm fully dressed in the Michael Myers thing, and I also wear combat boots, so I have like this like really kind of like heavy gait when I walk, and I do the whole like walk and everything too, do like the slow head turns. Yeah, I was popular, but there was a couple times like there's a friend of ours who lives in a kind of a cul-de-sac neighborhood, and so we end up going there for trick-or-treating because it's a nice place to set up, kind of like a closed-off area where the kids can come to us. It's a big central location, so a bunch of the neighbors kind of cluster there and give out candy that way. And so, and it's a big neighborhood, so it's full of kids. So, yeah. And it's really weird when you get like the teeny tiny little kids who know who you are and are not scared of you, but then the teenagers and the 20-somethings go running.
Yeah, that's always a scary costume. You always know / hope that it's a costume, but it's an intimidating look, especially on a taller man.
Yeah, yes. So anytime there's a couple of times cops would go through the neighborhood, or I think there maybe even a couple that lived in the neighborhood as well. So there's a few times when I'd see him, I just kind of just do a wave.
Yeah.
I'm not here to murder anybody. I'm just a civilian.
Civilian.
Yeah, I hope that costume doesn't get me in trouble one day, but it might. Oh, anyway, so
are you doing the same costume this year? You got costume plans for this year?
I'm probably going to be busting out the Mike Myers this year. Yeah, I mean, it's a good costume. I'm kind of doing a Ron Swanson thing where I have one Halloween costume each year, and so he does the pirate thing, and I'm going to go as Mike Myers because hey,
I have for the last few years just been guy wearing a hoodie. I don't go trick or treating or anything. I just church work or what we got a trunk or treat or something like that. So
sure, yeah.
But some of my goal costumes, I would like to dress up as a movie accurate Power Ranger. That would be awesome.
Nice.
Either of the members of Daft Punk, that would work for me. And then obviously top of the list has to be movie quality Batman.
Nice. Yeah, and of course, going back to the Power Rangers thing. Now, are we talking like the original movie or like the later, like the 2017 one?
I'd be okay with either because I don't want to argue with anybody. There were arguments for and against the new Power Rangers movie, right? But sure. I really liked it. I thought it was a fun, it was a good throwback to what Mighty Morphin came out when I was maybe 4, somewhere in there. It might have come out a little earlier even.
I think I can't remember if I was I think I was in high school when that came out. I know it was definitely 90s, but I can't remember if it was like late 80s or early 90s when it came out. But I think I was in high school by the time it came out.
But I'd be comfortable if I was in the correct shape to wear like the older ones that are more just like shirts and pants, with the little shoulder pads, or the newer ones that are the armored kind of Iron Man sort of looking costumes. Those would be fun too.
Yeah.
So speaking of.
Doing a Power Rangers and a Daft Punk, like those are almost kind of related a bit. So
yeah, you could probably put a Power Rangers helmet and a leather jacket on. People think you were like a DJ.
A bit, yeah. You're doing some sort of like tribute mashup or something. I don't know, but yeah. You can totally pull it off.
Speaking of Power Rangers, though, so we're talking about geek stuff, nerd stuff.
Yeah.
I am actually named for the Black Power Ranger, Zach. My mom was trying to think of names and asked my brother, who was 3 at the time, almost 3, and he was like Zach, and she liked Zachary as a full name, and so that's how I got it.
That's awesome. So she's thinking, oh, it's a classic name, it's a biblical name, and everything like that. It's good old, family. And he's like, no, Black Power Ranger.
Black Power Ranger, yeah.
I dig it. Yeah,
it has served me well.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. I mean, my name. Let's see. George has had multiple different. Curious George, George the Jungle, all that sort of stuff like that, and then Buehler. I mean,
yeah, come on.
It's not spelled like Ferris Bueller, but it's pronounced the same way. But the funny thing is that the more interesting variation is that anybody that's from like northern Indiana, like anything north of Corden, there was a grocery store chain called Buehler's Bilo, and it was just like locally owned grocery store chain. They had multiple locations, and they spelled their name Buehler like I spelled Bueller.
So it's Buehler.
Yeah, they pronounce it Buehler, but it was spelled the exact same way. I mean, I can't remember what the actual German name is, but I think it's almost close to like Buechler with like a there's a CH in there, so it's very I mean, Germans love consonants, so there you go. So it's very consonant heavy, and it's had multiple variations because people coming through Ellis Island and somebody doesn't have good hearing or understand the language, and so the same name get butchered 5 or 6 different ways.
Yep. It happens.
Yeah. Yeah, you got an easy one with Alexander because your name basically comes from Alexander the Great.
It could, yeah. I came from my grandfather, I believe, but
oh, nice. Yeah, but that name goes back very, very far. So
yeah, it's
there's a lot.
I will say, not to go on this huge rant about names, but I've always thought I felt like a Zach Alexander. Maybe everyone else feels that way about their names, but I just feel like my parents nailed it. I don't know how they nailed it so well, but they did.
I guess I've learned to kind of accept, George whatnot, but I don't know. I always like, for some reason, people always disagree with me on this one here, but I always like the name Paul.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I was like, but not whether or not that would have been my name or not, but I always like the name Paul. So there, but I'm a big Kiss fan. I like Paul Stanley, so that was probably had something to do with it there. So
I have several Pauls in my life, and they're all great guys.
See, there you go. I have an Uncle Paul, so but whether or not that was the influence, I don't know. We'll see. But well, cool. Of course, I've enjoyed having you on here and just getting to see what makes you tick and what you geek out about, because what we've talked before is like you're not traditional when it comes to the comic book stuff or whatever else, but you have all sorts of other different things you geek out about. So that's what the forum's all about. We kind of bring people with all different interests on here. So
absolutely, and we didn't even scratch the surface, George. I got so much more stuff that I'm obsessed with. So.
Yeah, of course, we briefly talked about this on the Elizabethtown podcast, or a little bit, I think maybe afterwards. But one of your favorite Spider-Man movies is an interesting choice.
Yeah, and I don't want any hate mail, guys. I don't want to hear it in the comments. But I understand. Let me just say that first. I understand, guys. My favorite, actually, it's my number 2 favorite movie of all time. Considering all other films I've watched, is The Amazing Spider-Man. With Andrew Garfield, the Mark Webb, he's the director. It came out, I think, when I was a junior in high school.
Okay.
And we were talking about that. I'm quoted as saying, I literally, because I grew up watching the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and I loved those because that was really my first introduction to superhero films, to superheroes as a thing. I'd maybe seen them on shirts or something at the store, but we didn't read a ton of comics until that point. Now, heck, I was only 7 when the first one came out, so I loved the Tobey Maguire movies, is what I'm saying. And then I saw the trailer for The Amazing Spider-Man, and I was like, nah, he's too skinny. This is lame. Why would why would they remake it like everyone else did? And I saw it, and then I saw it again, and then I saw it again, and then I got a DVD with the digital download, and there was one summer where I don't know, I was just obsessed with it. I watched it like 100 times that summer. It was a good time.
Wow. I mean, that's the thing is, people just you find a movie that something you grab onto, and you get obsessed with it. I mean, I was obsessed with Pulp Fiction when it came out in '94. Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw that thing 16 times in the theater.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
what's your number 1, and then I'll give you my number 1.
Gosh, for me being a deep movie geek, that's a tough question. But I mean, I'd say probably an easy pick for me, just right off the top of my head, would probably be the original Star Wars, because seeing it at the drive-in is one of my earliest memories.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, this was during the 1978 re-release, because it hit 77 the Memorial Day weekend. It was so popular that year that when it was eventually left theaters, they decided, you know what, let's re-release it next summer. So Memorial Day weekend 78 roll around, there it goes again, here in theaters. And so my parents took me to the drive-in to see it, and they said I didn't make a sound the entire movie.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
I was transfixed. So, I mean, there's a lot of other movies like The Warriors as a favorite of mine. John Carpenter's The Thing. So I mean, there's so many others, but yeah, I'd say that's probably an easy pick for me.
My number one is Source Code, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know if everyone has seen this or heard of it.
I've seen this, yeah.
It's a time loop movie, which I have on my list of favorite movies. I think within the top 10, there are like 4 time loop movies. I'm not sure what it is about those films that really draw me in, but Source Code is my number one. It has been since 2013-ish. And I could watch it. I could probably watch it every day, and I don't know why.
What are some of the other time loop movies you're into?
I really, really liked Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, whatever you call it, based on that, was it a graphic novel called All You Need Is Kill?
All You Need Is Kill.
And I haven't read it, but I'm sure it's cool. But I really enjoyed the movie. I don't know if I was supposed to. Like, I don't know how critically acclaimed it was, but I really liked it. And then most recently, there was an Amazon Prime movie called The Map of Tiny Perfect Things. And it's a cool little teenage rom-com based within a temporal anomaly. They keep reliving the same day over and over. They eventually find each other, and then it's kind of like a will they, won't they, why are they there together sort of movie. And honestly, my wife fell asleep watching it the first time. She was like, you like that kind of stuff. And so I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times total, just because, can't live with my wife, obviously. So I'm not going to be like, hey, let's watch that one movie that you don't care for that much again, so, but yeah, that's a good one.
Nice. I'm a big fan of kind of, sometimes like, time travel or time looping stuff there. One independent movie I could definitely recommend for you. I'm not sure. I don't know if this is streaming anywhere. I'm sure you can probably find it on YouTube, maybe even free, but a movie called Proof. And it's a very independent, very low budget movie, but it's basically a couple of guys who are like just regular corporate jobs. And they decide, you know what, we're going to try to build our own time machine. And so it's a extremely scientifically accurate, real life kind of like, these guys are going to build a time machine, and how would that sort of thing work? So there's not a lot of like, it's a very kind of like, very, I don't know. It's definitely kind of high sci-fi sort of thing like that. So there's no, big special effects or lasers kind of stuff in there, but it's a really cool device of how they do it.
I'll check that
another
out.
one, more recent one, Looper. If you've not seen that
one,
I
have seen Looper. Yes. When I was in Oklahoma for my freshman year of college, the guys on my floor, we were on the out-of-state floor. Shout out! I didn't mention this on the Elizabethtown podcast, but I roomed with a guy named Andrew, and Andrew, early on in the first semester, was like, "Hey, I've got to tell you something." This is how he said, "I have to tell you something because I don't want you to hear it from someone else."
Right.
And he was definitely like laying it on. I was like, what is going on? He goes, "I was in a movie as a child," and I was like, okay. And so my roommate in college was in a movie called How to Eat Fried Worms. I don't know if you guys remember. They made it was a book, and then they made a movie adaptation. I don't know that it made like billions of dollars, but he said he had a pretty decent account from just being in it. So that was always cool. But long story short, we had a Saturday tradition called Dems, which was Decent Enough Movie Saturday. And so we would typically go to Target and find something that was like $10, and we'd all chip in, or someone would buy it. It's no big deal. And we would watch it. So Looper was really good, but it was part of Dems, which I really enjoyed it. So I don't know that it was just decent enough, but it was actually very decent.
Yeah, it was very decent. Yeah. And one more recommendation. This is a classic because it's a late 90s one, but 12 Monkeys.
Okay. I don't know that I'm familiar.
It is a Terry Gilliam film, so it's definitely going to be kind of a little artsy and a little weird, but it stars Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. Basically, the premise is we've polluted the earth enough to the point that we can no longer live on the surface without walking around in a hazmat suit. So everybody lives underground. And we've decided, you know what? We're going to go into the past to try to find out where we went wrong, right those wrongs, and see if we can avoid all these ecological disasters that brought us to the place we are today. So Bruce Willis is basically tasked as a time traveler. He's kind of like just an average Joe kind of person, but he just looks at it as a job, like it's, like he's going to work at a Denny's or a Walmart or something like that. But no, he's going to travel to the past. And Brad Pitt's character lives in the past, who may have a big connection to everything that's going on. But the one redeeming fact about Brad Pitt is that he is insane, because that's where we find him, is in an asylum.
Wow.
And it is a fantastic performance for Brad Pitt, because he goes all out bonkers in this movie. Like, he's all this, this and talking weird and doing things like, he goes full into the performance. So it's a really cool movie, but definitely playing a lot with time and, kind of messing with our perceptions of how we view time and how time actually is, and how maybe time travel would work in that sphere. So very cool stuff there. So
awesome. I'll check that out. I will make a point to watch these movies.
See, it gives us something to talk about. So there you go.
Yep.
Well, hey, one more time before we get out of here, we're going to plug the Elizabethtown Podcast here. So once again, where can we find you?
There it is, guys. I would love it if you would follow the podcast. We have a Facebook and Instagram page at Elizabethtown Podcast. We are at this point, if you are a business owner in E-Town, for free, you can just come on and talk on the podcast with me for roughly 30 to 60 minutes. And that's what it's about, conversation. If you are more looking for advertising, we're open to that as well. But the real plug, I would love for people to listen, to let me know what they think about different guests. And again, that's available on all audio podcast platforms.
That's right. Yeah, like I said, it's I've been on your show, I've listened to the show, and like I said, if you're definitely looking for something that's just a nice conversation, you maybe learn something, whatever else. That's kind of the route you want to go with this one. Of course, like you said, with the paranormal investigators, if you definitely like the spooky side, that you definitely hit that one. But for the most part, though, you have some nice friendly conversations with people.
If you are a long podcast listener, like you enjoy the hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, that is a must listen for the Elizabethtown Podcast. Yeah,
definitely. So, and of course, I'm not the first geek that's been on your show. You've had, other business owners who have, some fun geeky stuff too. So
all of my guests have been geeks so far, George. All of them.
Really? That's cool.
Bunch of nerds.
Nice connectivity here. So.
No, hey, I think a must listen, while we're talking about must listen episodes, this Wednesday coming out. It's what day is that? The 14th, September 14th. George Buehler from Fanatic Forum.
And that's also my sister's birthday. So there you go.
Hey.
What better birthday gift than your brother being on a podcast?
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Zach. I appreciate it, man. It's been a good time on here. So.
Yes, thank you so much. And you guys listen to the OK. If I could also just make that last plug. And again, George, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And the OK Fest in Brandenburg coming up here. So, if you want to just, jam out, in a field with, hopefully a few hundred of your closest friends or 1,000 of your closest. I don't know how big of a crowd's going to be.
Yeah. But, 1 million. No, I'm just kidding.
Just, nice local little music festival here. Because, we got like the big festivals coming in town, the Louder Than Life, the Bourbon and Beyond, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but you want a nice local festival here, some, original bands, whatever else, discover some new music, the OK Fest. That's where you need to go.
No tents, people won't be as smelly as, something out in a field, and it'd be a good time. October 1st in Brandenburg.
Yeah, this is no Woodstock 99 here, folks. This is Have you noticed that there's competing Woodstock 99 documentaries out now?
Yeah, what's the deal? They all decided to do it at the same time? They're like, all right, it's time.
It's been long enough. We want to go back and revisit that train wreck, but geez.
One day they'll make documentaries about the OK Fest.
Yes, sir. Well, you have yourself a good one, sir, and we will see you next time. So. I'm going to sign you out here. So you have a good one. I'll say goodbye to the folks here. All right, folks. Yeah. So again, I hope you guys enjoy the show here. Definitely check out the Elizabethtown Podcast. And of course, with the Fanatic Forum here, like, share, Tell your friends about it, because I love having folks that, bringing them to the table here, discussing geek things, whatever else. And of course, for local events here, 3 Decade Arcade tonight, they're doing their 70s night. So they'll still be open for a few more hours because I think they're open until midnight. So go there, enjoy some 70s music, play some pinball, some old video games, and just, hang out with your friends out there, man. It's a good time. So you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time on the Fanatic Forum. Take care. Bye-bye.